and welcome back to my channel. I'm Crunchywood Girl, and today we are going to be building a table. Now this table is going to be made out of ash, hence why there's some ash boards laying out in the machine shop. And we're going to be working on the top first. I always think on a dining table you want to start with the top, because when you start with the top you'll find the best timber and you can use that up first and then use the rest for the frame. That's what people walk into a room and that's what they'll see first. So I've got some book matched planks here, so they should, once cut and put back together, be a really nice match of timber. So first things first is I need to get them cut to a rough length and get them over the planer and planed up. Now that they're planed to thickness, we want to edge one side, put it through the saw so it comes out nice and parallel, and then edge the other side again. So even though the planer gives a really nice square cut, it's definitely not good enough for a tabletop. These are joints that you're going to be looking at for a long time if it's your dining table, so they have got to be absolutely perfect. So here I've got a really sharp jack plane. I'm just going along getting a really fine cut and keep testing it in some clamps. Once I was happy with that, I decided, right, now it's time to get some joints in. So here I'm just using dominoes with the Festal dominoer. Very simple, very easy, but you can do biscuits or grooves, anything as such, as long as it's got a good join to hold everything flat and in line. So once I was done with the dominoer and I was happy that it was all clamping up nicely, it was time to get it glued. To do this I'm using Titebond 3 and obviously the dominoes and some Bessie clamps. And once I've got that in clamp, I do leave that for several hours. In fact, I go on to do the frame of the table before I go back to the top. So here we are moving on to the frame of the table, and this is my leg shape. This is the exact shape that I want my legs to be. So I draw around my template and I make sure I cut slightly over on the bandsaw, and then again it's through the planer, getting them down to thickness, and then it's onto the spindle to get them into the correct shape. So now that our legs are to thickness, I'm going to draw around my jig again and take it back to the bandsaw and cut a little bit closer to my line. Still not cutting to the line, making sure I'm slightly over width still, but getting closer. So now that we're slightly over width, I'm going to screw my jig to my leg, and these will get cut off at the end because my leg is over length. Now this is the spindle moulder, and it is basically just set up as a really big router with a flush trim cutter in. It's got the bearing on just the same as your router cutters have. This is actually possible to do with a router cutter. The only reason why I'm using this is because I have it available to me, and so why make work harder when you can make it easier? So here I've made a really simple jig to cutting them to length, and once I've got it clamped into place, I literally just flip it on the fence and I can cut the other side as well, meaning that they'll be parallel, so what's flat on the floor will be flat on the tabletop. So it's really simple when you come to think of it, and it's a really simple jig to make as well. So now that the legs are sorted with, we're going for the under rails that will support the legs from splaying out. And these are just essentially two curves that are half lapped together. And they'll have to have an angle on to match the leg, which is what I'm doing now while the wood's still a square piece of timber. Doing it while it's a square piece of timber makes it so much easier than trying to put an angle on a curved piece of wood. So it is slightly more wasteful, but it makes life easier. Since it was just 2 arches that I was making, I thought I'd rather just hand plane them rather than setting up a whole spindle jig or router jig to get them done, when you can use just a classic compass plane and get them planed in that way. So here now what I'm doing is the joint to join the two together, and it's going to be a half lap. I did have a slight problem, is I couldn't get the crosscut to come all the way forward because of the curve. It was hitting the motor on the right hand side. So I did the best I could, and then I cleaned it up with a chisel, and I think I used a router to set the depth a little bit as well. Once I was happy with the 2 half laps of both the arches, it was time to get some dominoes into the ends of them to join into the legs. I was going to do a double stack, so 4 in each. This would make it really strong and stop the splaying of the leg when pressure was put onto the top of the table. So once I was happy with those joints, it was time to get things glued. So I started off with gluing the 2 arches together, and then moved on to getting the legs glued onto the arches. So then there was one more frame to make, which is a really simple frame, and I've already milled the timber out so they're already to thickness, because I didn't want to bore you with that planer again. So they're already thicknessed, and we're just going to be doing some half laps, making sure they all slot together parallel, and then I get that glued also. Now it's finally time to get the tabletop out of clamp. And first things first is that I have to cut it to a rough size to actually get it through the sander. Sander's not critical, you could do it with a hand sander, but like I say, we've got a sander, so I may as well use it. It makes life easy for me. I created a quarter of the oval out of a bit of 18mm MDF so I could route off that, flip it around with halfway lines, and I was able to create the whole oval. If you're still watching this video at this point, I'd just like to say a massive thank you, and if you could really do me a big favour and hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to my channel and share with your family and friends, I'd really appreciate it. And I hope to see you next time. I hope you like this table, and if you do click the notification bell, there will be a video to follow creating 4 chairs for this table. I'll see you next time everyone, bye!